I'm 27, and for nearly 2 years now, I've been my little sister's legal guardian. She's 13. As for our parents, well, that's a whole other can of worms I won't get into right now. Long story short, they're no longer around. Mom was diagnosed with cancer when my sister was just 10, and after she passed, our dad completely unraveled. He couldn't cope and started drinking heavily. About a year later, he died in a car accident, likely a result of that downward spiral. So it's just the two of us now, living in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment I can barely afford with my paycheck from the USPS. She's my whole world, and I'm hers, which makes what happened recently even harder to process. Lately, things have been rough. Work's been wearing me down with never-ending hours and routes that seem to change every week. My supervisor's the kind of guy who gets a little power and immediately turns into a dictator. Some days I'm out delivering mail until after dark, and the pay doesn't come close to matching the workload. I had to quit my online college classes because there just isn't time anymore, not with the job and taking care of a teenager. I'm still paying off some of the debt left behind by Dad's medical bills. And then there's my sister's therapy, which insurance only partly covers. Every dollar counts. I take any extra shifts I can grab, which means I'm barely home most nights. My sister's been spending more time over at her friend Maddie's place. Her mom's been a big help, letting her stay for dinner and driving her home when I'm stuck working late. It gives me peace of mind, especially considering the neighborhood we live in. It's not the safest. The rent keeps going up, but the landlord refuses to fix anything. Just last month, the water heater broke and took 2 weeks to replace. We had to shower at the gym I have a bargain membership at. The guy across the hall is always smoking something that sure as hell isn't cigarettes, and the couple next door fights like clockwork at 2 a.m. It's not ideal, but it's all I can manage right now, and moving isn't an option, we just don't have the funds. I do what I can to keep things steady for her. I make sure she's got what she needs for school, help with homework when I'm not dead tired, and even stash away a little bit each month for her college fund, even if it's only $20 or $30. I want her to have choices I never had. So when my delivery route changed recently to include both the local middle and high school, I thought it might be a nice thing. My sister goes to the middle school, and I figured maybe I get to wave at her now and then during the day. Something small, but kind of sweet. Turns out, I couldn't have been more wrong. Earlier today, I was walking through the middle school halls with a load of mail, heading for the main office. It was between classes, so the place was swarming with students. I was trying to make my way through the crowd when suddenly, someone shouted loudly, "Back away, pedo." I froze like I'd been hit with a stun gun. My head whipped around, heart pounding, and there she was, my sister, standing with her friend Maddie, pointing right at me and laughing like it was the funniest thing she'd ever seen. My face instantly burned with embarrassment. I told her that wasn't funny, but kids were already staring and whispering. One of the teachers, I think her name is Miss Thompson, came over looking dead serious and asked what was going on. I was freaking out but tried to stay calm while explaining I was just the mail carrier and that the girl making the joke was my sister. She stood there with this smug little grin like she was proud of herself for getting a reaction out of me. The teacher didn't look totally convinced at first, but she eventually told both girls to head back to class. As she was walking away, I called out to my sister and told her, firmly, "Give me your phone." I didn't raise my voice, but I said it in a way that made it clear I wasn't messing around. She turned, stunned, and asked what, like she couldn't believe I was actually doing it. I just stood there, hand out, staring at her until she huffed, pulled it from her pocket, and slammed it into my palm before stomping off. I'm not someone who picks fights. I avoid conflict whenever I can. But this? This got under my skin in the worst way. I've been called a lot of things over the years, but never that. And hearing it come from my own sister, it felt like a punch to the gut. I still had to finish my deliveries, but I was completely rattled. I almost dropped off mail at the wrong houses more than once. I kept replaying the whole thing in my head and second-guessing myself, did I overreact? But then that awful word would echo in my mind again, and my chest would tighten all over. You don't throw that kind of accusation around, especially not at a man who works around kids. One person hears it and suddenly I'm being investigated, possibly arrested, definitely fired. And then what? What happens to my sister? The rest of the shift blurred by. I couldn't stop thinking about what I was going to say to her later. Disciplining her isn't something that comes naturally to me. When our parents were still around, I was the fun older brother sneaking her ice cream before dinner, covering for her when she broke something. Now I'm supposed to be her parent, and most days I feel like I'm pretending. By the time I got home around 6, she was already there. My neighbor keeps an eye on her after school when I'm working late. She was clearly mad, wouldn't even look at me when I walked in. I tried to keep it normal. I made her favorite pasta, hoping it would be a peace offering. She took the plate straight to her room without even saying thanks. But she left the door cracked, which I've come to recognize as her version of not totally shutting me out. I flopped onto the couch and absent-mindedly flipped through channels, but I wasn't watching. I could hear her talking on her laptop, probably with Maddie, venting about how unfair or embarrassing I was. I caught words like totally unfair and so embarrassing. Eventually, once we'd both cooled off, I knocked on her door and asked if we could talk. She gave me a shrug, which in teenage language means fine. I sat on the edge of her bed and told her straight up, what she did was way out of line. She could have cost me my job, the one thing keeping food on the table and a roof over our heads. And all for a stupid joke. I asked her if she understood how serious it was. She immediately got defensive and hit me with the classic, "Who do you think you are, my parent?" And that one stung. Because the truth is, I'm trying. I'm doing my best. I never set out to take the place of our parents. That was never the plan. All I've ever tried to do is hold things together and give my sister the best shot at growing up safe and okay. In the middle of our argument, I told her something I probably shouldn't have. I said, "Hey, I pay for your cell phone. I can shut it off whenever I want." Not exactly my most mature moment, but I was exhausted and upset. She didn't respond. Just turned her back and walked off like I hadn't said a word. I called after her, asking if she planned on eating or if I should just put her dinner away. Her answer? She shot me the finger on her way down the stairs. I yelled that I was keeping her phone another day for that little display. Again, not the best parenting move, but honestly, I was running on fumes. A few minutes later, I heard her digging through the cabinets in the kitchen. She came back up with a bag of chips, slammed her bedroom door, and that was that. I stood there in the hallway feeling completely useless, not knowing whether to knock or just let her be. Eventually, I gave up and went back to the couch. Tried to watch a movie, but my brain wouldn't quiet down. All I could think about was how different everything is now. Before we lost our parents, things were simpler. We used to get along really well. When I was in college, she'd message me about school stuff or ask for advice on some middle school drama. We'd do movie marathons whenever I came home. I was the fun big brother back then. Now it feels like every word I say could set off a landmine. I barely slept that night. I kept turning things over in my head, wondering if I'd gone too far, or maybe not far enough. I never thought I'd actually miss Dad's long-winded lectures, but the truth is, at least he had some idea how to handle this kind of stuff. Me? I'm just improvising and hoping I don't screw up. She really is the most important person in my life. She's the reason I drag myself to that soul-crushing job every morning. She's smart, funny, and kind when she wants to be. But lately? It's like she's turned into someone else. Maybe it's just hormones and grief colliding, I don't know. But some days it feels like I'm failing her. When our parents passed, I swore I'd do everything in my power to keep her out of the system. No foster homes, no living with our unstable aunt halfway across the country. I didn't want her bounced around like some forgotten suitcase. But there are moments, quiet ones, when I sit alone and think, am I even built for this? I'm 27. I should be focused on finishing school, building a career, dating without calculating whether someone would be a good role model for a teenager. Most of the time, we're okay. We have our little routines. I make her breakfast before I head out. She gets ready and goes to school. I leave lunch money and she shoots me a text when she gets home. If I'm working late, I check in. On weekends, we laugh at trashy reality shows and eat too much popcorn. We try to keep things feeling normal. But when something like that incident at school happens, it's like reality punches me in the face. Everything I built with duct tape and desperation could fall apart in a second. One careless mistake, one joke said too loudly, and the whole foundation cracks. Maybe I did overreact about the phone. Maybe I should have let it go. But that kind of accusation could have destroyed everything. And then, boom, my original post blew up. Seriously, I wasn't expecting that kind of response. The comments, the messages, so many of you reached out. Thank you. Even to the people who said I was being too harsh, I get it. I appreciate the honesty. Sorry I couldn't reply to everyone. I was stuck on a brutal double shift when this thing took off. To clear up a few common questions, yes, I do have legal guardianship. No, there's no other family we can lean on, not any that are reliable, anyway. And yeah, therapy's part of our lives. She still goes regularly. I had to cut back on mine just to afford hers. And for the folks saying, have you tried just talking to her? Yes. Of course I've tried. I'm not clueless. I know she's grieving. She lost both of our parents in under a year. That pain doesn't just go away. I've been doing everything I can to keep things steady. But grief doesn't give her a free pass to say whatever she wants without consequences. Anyway, update. I had another delivery at her school recently and managed to catch that teacher, Miss Thompson, I think. I was nervous. Honestly, I expected her to say the incident had already been escalated to the principal or something worse. But she surprised me. Said she spoke to my sister afterward and didn't feel like it needed to be reported, at least not this time. She did say, though, that if anything like that happens again, she'd have no choice but to take it higher. Fair enough. I nearly collapsed from the relief. She actually seemed pretty kind once she knew the full story. She mentioned that my sister is usually well behaved in class, which gave me a little hope. She also passed along info for a grief support group the school runs, kids who've lost parents. It meets after school. I'm going to look into it. The trick will be getting her there since I usually work late, but maybe Maddie's mom can help with rides. I've spent the last few days reflecting on all of this, really trying to think it through. I decided I needed to talk to my sister again, but calmly this time. I'd had a rough week. For straight 14-hour days. The USPS doesn't mess around when they're short-staffed. My coworker was being a jerk, my boss blamed me for something I didn't even do, and by the time I got home around 9:30 at night, I was wrecked. But when I opened the door, I saw her sitting at the kitchen table. She had her books out. She was doing homework. That almost never happens. She usually disappears into her room the second she gets home. She looked up and said she wanted to talk. We sat down, and before I could even open my mouth, she said she was sorry. Really sorry. She apologized for what she said at school, for embarrassing me, and for flipping me off. She told me she didn't mean to risk my job and that she loved me. I didn't know what to say at first. She's not one to admit when she's wrong. Maybe something you all said in the comments got through. She does browse Reddit now and then, though I doubt she knows I posted this. I had a whole speech ready in my head, but her apology threw me off. Still, I told her I appreciated it, but I needed her to understand how serious this really was. I explained that if the wrong adult had heard what she said, it could have opened up a CPS case. I told her how real the consequences could have been. She could have ended up in foster care, separated from me, with people we don't know. I could have lost my job. Maybe worse. She looked shocked, like she'd never thought it could go that far. And honestly, I believe she hadn't. I think sometimes kids throw words around without realizing how much damage they can cause. Once the initial apology settled, I brought up something that had been building for a while, her attitude lately. The constant eye-rolling, the snarky comebacks, the way she speaks to me like I'm just some annoying roommate. I reminded her that while I'll always be her big brother, right now, I'm also her legal guardian, and that comes with the responsibility of raising her to become a kind, decent person. That's when I dropped the bomb. I told her I was limiting her screen time, cutting off internet access outside of schoolwork, and replacing her smartphone with an old-school flip phone. She froze. Literally just sat there staring at me like she couldn't believe what she just heard. Then came the "Are you serious?" followed by "Why would you do something so extreme?" I kept my voice steady and told her again, this wasn't a joke. This was the decision I had made, and I wasn't changing it. That's when the floodgates opened. She started pleading, apologizing harder than before. She said the school joke was dumb, yes, but didn't deserve that kind of punishment. Then she started crying, really crying, and I instantly felt like absolute trash. Part of me wanted to cave right then and there. To tell her I'd reconsider. But I didn't. I held my ground, even though it sucked. The truth is, I've been worried about her phone use for months. It's glued to her hand, even during meals. She gets visibly anxious when it's not within arm's reach. And I never know who she's messaging or what she's looking at. After what happened at school, I figured now was the right time to finally do something about it. I tried to explain that it wasn't just about the inappropriate joke. This was about a bigger pattern, her behavior, her attitude, and how much of it seemed tied to that damn phone. She stays up too late scrolling, ignores chores, and gets irritated when I ask her to put it down at dinner. But it was like she stopped listening the moment I said I wouldn't change my mind. That's when her whole vibe flipped. She went from apologizing to going on the attack. Suddenly I was being controlling and toxic and power-hungry. Then she hit where it really hurt. She brought up my autism diagnosis. Yeah, that happened a few months back. I was officially diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Honestly, it was kind of a relief. It gave me a name for a lot of the things I've struggled with my entire life, things I thought were just me being weird or off. She only knows because she overheard me talking about it on the phone. I never sat her down and explained it properly. I guess I should have. She threw it in my face, asking how someone like me could be trusted to make decisions for her. I was stunned. I didn't yell. I just said, ableism. Nice. Her reply? Is it ableism if you're actually being stupid? That one hit me straight in the gut. I don't even remember what I said after that. Probably some half-baked line about respecting each other. It all escalated so fast. The argument ended with her screaming that I was being ridiculous and that she hated me before storming off and slamming her door. Believe it or not, that's not even the worst thing she said. Once, during a different fight, she told me she wished I was dead. Another time, she said she wished she didn't live with me. I hate you hurts, but at least I can take that one without completely falling apart. I just sat in the kitchen for a while afterward, numb. I wanted to call someone, to vent, to cry, to just unload all the weight I'd been carrying. But the truth is, there's no one to call. Most of my friends drifted away after I took custody. I don't really have the kind of relationship with my coworkers where I can get that personal. And therapy? That's out of reach right now. Some nights, it honestly feels like I'm barely keeping my head above water, pretending to be this solid rock for her, but the truth is, I've got no one holding me up. I ended up watching dumb YouTube videos until my brain stopped buzzing, then dragged myself to bed. I think I heard her crying behind her door at one point. I knocked and asked if she wanted to talk, but she told me to leave her alone. So I left a granola bar and juice box outside her room, just in case. The next morning was tense. We moved around the apartment like strangers. I made her favorite breakfast, French toast. She muttered that she wasn't hungry, grabbed an apple, and left for school without even looking at me. Her eyes were puffy. It was obvious she'd been crying most of the night. I texted her around lunch just to check in. No reply. For a second, I panicked, then remembered I still had her phone. My brain's been so fried lately, I completely forgot. That afternoon, she got home before me as usual. When I walked in, she was sitting at the kitchen table, doing homework. That alone felt like a tiny win. We had a quiet dinner. Just short phrases like, pass the salt. But it wasn't hostile. Afterward, she asked if she could watch TV. I said yes. We ended up watching some cooking competition neither of us really cared about. But still, better than silence. Also, sorry if this post is messy. I'm dead tired while writing this. Just trying to keep my eyes open. Update 2, it's been about a week since that last post. I haven't really slept properly in days, so if this seems all over the place, that's why. Work's been absolutely brutal, and I'm hanging by a thread. But I know some of you wanted an update. To be honest, not a whole lot has changed. Some days are manageable. Others feel like too much. First, thank you to everyone who shared their own stories, especially those of you who were raised by siblings or became guardians yourselves. It helps to know I'm not completely alone in this. As for how I'm doing? Not great. I had another mini breakdown during lunch yesterday. Just sat in my car and cried for 10 minutes. Then wiped my face, pulled it together, and finished my route. It's not something I'm proud of, but sometimes the weight of all this stuff just breaks through. Things stayed quiet after our blow-up. I followed through and got her the flip phone. Nothing fancy, just calls and texts. At first, she completely ignored it. Left it sitting on the counter like it didn't exist. But after a day or two, she realized it was the only way to reach her friends and grudgingly took it. I caught her giving it this look, like it had personally betrayed her. The first few days were rough. She kept grumbling about how useless it was. Said her friends would think she was a freak. I tried to explain that more people are actually switching to basic phones again to cut back on tech addiction, but she just rolled her eyes. For the next week, she barely left her room when I was home. Our conversations were limited to, "Can we talk? Can I have my phone back? No. Then never mind. Rinse. Repeat." She came out to eat when I wasn't around, went to school, then disappeared back into her room. I started worrying that maybe I'd crossed a line I couldn't walk back from. That maybe I'd lost her for good. I tried to stick to our usual routines, making breakfast, leaving it on the counter for her with a quick note like, "Have a good day." I'd make it home for dinner when my schedule didn't get in the way. Some mornings I'd come downstairs and notice little signs that she was at least functioning, like a dirty bowl in the sink or sandwich fixings left out on the counter. Small things, but they reminded me how much we drifted apart. It was like we were coexisting in the same space but living entirely separate lives. She's been spending more time over at Maddie's house lately, probably for the Wi-Fi and access to a real smartphone. Her friend's mom texted me to ask if it was okay, and I told her yes. I'm actually grateful my sister has someone she can talk to, even if it's not me right now. I called Maddie's mom shortly after to explain what was going on, so she wouldn't be caught off guard by my sister suddenly showing up in a bad mood with a flip phone. She was incredibly kind and said she'd keep an eye on her without making it obvious. She even invited the two of us over for dinner this weekend, which was thoughtful. I told her we'd try to come, depending on my work schedule. Speaking of work, yeah, it's been hell. 2 carriers out sick means I've been stuck doing extra routes, and 12-hour days are now the norm. My legs feel like they're made of cement, and I've got this gross rash on one calf from all the walking. My supervisor keeps saying things will get better next week, which is exactly what he said last week, and the week before that. Wednesday was the worst. Torrential rain all day. A dog chased me half a block. Some angry guy yelled at me because his package was late, like that's somehow my personal fault. By the time I got home, I was soaked, freezing, and dead tired. But when I walked in, I smelled food. My sister had made dinner, just pasta with Jarrett sauce, nothing fancy. She muttered that she figured I'd be hungry too. It wasn't exactly an olive branch, but after everything that's happened, it felt like a small but meaningful step. Tonight, I got off a little earlier, only a 10-hour shift, which apparently counts as a break. On my way home, I stopped at the store and grabbed ingredients for tacos, something we used to make together every Friday before all this drama started. When I got home, she was in her room as usual. I knocked on her door and asked if we could talk. After a long silence, she finally said, "Okay." That alone felt like a win. We sat down in the living room, and I brought up what she said at school. I explained, calmly this time, just how serious it was to call someone a pedophile even as a joke. I asked her what made her think that was funny. At first, she just shrugged and mumbled, not really giving me much. But slowly, I think the message started to land. Eventually, she admitted it was something she saw online. Her friends think it's hilarious when kids shout that stuff at strangers and film the reactions. She said she didn't really think about how it might affect me. Just thought it would get a laugh. I told her I believed she didn't mean real harm, but the consequences could have been very real, especially if someone else had heard it. I explained that accusations like that stick, and they can ruin lives. I also told her the flip phone wasn't permanent. I just needed to see some real change, respect, better choices, more awareness. If things improved, we could talk about getting her smartphone back, though it would definitely have limits and parental controls. I reassured her that her phone was safe, locked up in my storage locker, and that I hadn't gone through it and wouldn't invade her privacy. That seemed to calm her down a bit. She asked how long she'd have to use the flip phone, and I said there wasn't a hard timeline, maybe we could revisit the conversation in a month. She didn't love that answer, but she didn't blow up either. Progress. I told her I loved her. That no matter how hard this gets, she's my best friend, and I'm lucky to be her brother. I asked if I could give her a hug. She said, "Whatever, but let me hug her anyway." That moment made my entire week. She didn't say much during the conversation, just the occasional okay. But after we talked, she came downstairs for dinner without needing to be coaxed. We made the tacos together, and for the first time in a while, it felt like the old days. She even started telling me about a science project she's working on, something about testing how different kinds of light affect plant growth. It was the most she's voluntarily spoken to me in over a week. Later, she mentioned that Maddie's older brother is coming home from college next weekend, and they're throwing him a welcome-back party. She wanted to know if she could go. I told her I'd need some more details, who'd be there, whether any adults would be supervising. And for once, she didn't get defensive or sarcastic. She just said she'd ask and let me know. Another little win. Money's still tight. Cutting her phone plan helped a bit, but not enough. My car needs new tires, and rent just jumped another $50 this month. I'm thinking about picking up a side hustle, maybe food delivery on my off days, if I can find the time and energy. So yeah, that's where we're at. No dramatic movie ending resolution. Just two people slowly trying to rebuild trust one small step at a time. Thanks for sticking with me and letting me vent. Being a guardian at 27, while still trying to figure out my own life, is one of the hardest things I've ever done. Some days I feel like I'm getting it all wrong, but I'm doing the best I can. If anyone has advice on how to keep moving forward, I'm all ears. Also, the anniversary of our mom's death is coming up next month. Last year we didn't do anything to acknowledge it, and it was honestly a disaster. I'm thinking of doing something different this time. Maybe visiting her grave or pulling out old photo albums. Something small. My sister hasn't brought it up, but I can tell she's thinking about it. She's been wearing mom's earrings lately. And one last thing, my sister's turning 14 in a few months. I want to do something special, something that says I care and not just I took your phone away. I thought about concert tickets, but good ones are ridiculously expensive. Maybe I'll repaint her room, it's something she's been asking about forever. Anyway, thanks again. It helps more than I can say just knowing someone out there is listening. Edit. Oh, and I guess I should have explained this sooner, the whole back off, pedo thing? Apparently it's some idiotic trend online where kids yell that at strangers in public, film the reactions, and post it for laughs. That's what she was copying. When she finally told me, I was livid. What kind of messed up challenge is that? Yelling serious accusations at random people for internet clout? It's reckless and disgusting. At least when kids were eating Tide Pods, they were only hurting themselves. I tried explaining to her how dangerous that could be. What if one of those people had a heart condition and panicked? What if someone had a weapon? Or worse, what if someone was on a registry and reacted violently out of fear of being recognized? So many ways that could have gone sideways. She just rolled her eyes, of course. But whatever. The fact that she's even talking to me again is more than I had a week ago. It's not perfect, but I'll take it.